The secret tomb of the first Chinese emperor remains an unopened treasure, and it's still a mystery. The tomb of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, despite being one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all times, endures as a mystery to archaeologists and historians because it remains largely sealed up and unexplored. The strange and deadly history of the tomb and its contents was sealed within and buried beneath vegetation for thousands of years. The tomb of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, despite being involved in one of the greatest archaeological discoveries, endures a mystery to archaeologists and historians. It's sealed up and explored. Strange, deadly history of the tomb, contents sealed within it, buried beneath vegetation. We would look at and remind, it would look like a hill, a regular hill to us. Now, a 2017 study of ancient texts written on thousands of wooden slats revealed the extent of the emperor's power and his desire to live forever. The artifact includes an executive order from Emperor Qin Shi Huang for a nationwide hunt for the elixir of life, and also the replies from local governments. One village called Duxiang reported that no miraculous potion had been found there yet, but assured the emperor that they would continue to search. Another place, Langyia, claimed to have found a herb on an auspicious local mountain, quote unquote, which could do the job. As a matter of fact, the construction of the emperor's tomb began long before Qin Shi Huang became the first Chinese emperor. When Qin Shi Huang was 13 years old, he ascended to the throne of Qin, Huayan, and immediately began building his eternal resting place. It was only in 221 BC, however, when Qin Shi Huang successfully unified China, that full-scale construction would begin, as he then commanded manpower totaling 700,000 from across the country. Okay, this was 221 BC. That's about 100 years after Alexander the Great went through and got into the Yunnan of China. And you'll see that in one of the latest 2 videos back. Yunnan province, a Greek region, famous Greek passage. So this was about 100 years after Alexander the Great, 221 BC. The first Chinese emperor, looking for the elixir of life. Alexander the Great also was looking for the elixir of life. Supposedly his sister, who was very fond of him, found it. But he didn't want to take it because it was a special kind of water, and he never wanted to put water in his wine. She put the elixir in his wine, and he said, "You have it. I'm not going to have it," because he never drank water in his wine. So anyway, the first emperor, when Qin Shi Huang successfully unified China, a full-scale construction would begin on his pyramid, his tomb, as he then commanded manpower totaling 700,000 from across the country. The tomb, located in Lingtong County, Shaanxi Province, took over 38 years to complete and was only finished several years after his death. An account of the construction of Qin Shi Huang's tomb and its description can be found in the records of the Grand Historian, which was written by the Han Dynasty historian Sima Qian, and according to the source, Qin Shi Huang's tomb contained, quote, palaces and scenic towers for 100 officials, end quote, as well as numerous rare artifacts and treasures. Let's remember that all the ancient emperors and rulers and conquerors had their historians. Every single day, they were taking notes of every single thing that was going on. Now, in addition, the 2 major rivers of China, the Yangtze and the Yellow River, were simulated in the tomb using mercury. Where else have we seen mercury in underground tombs and pyramids? We saw them in South America. So they were using mercury, which is very toxic and poisonous if we touch it, you know. The rivers were also set mechanically to flow into the Great Sea, whilst the rivers and other features of the land were represented on the floor of the tomb. Its ceiling was decorated with the heavenly constellations. Thus, Qin Shi Huang could continue to rule over his empire even in the afterlife. To protect the tomb, the emperor's craftsmen were instructed to make traps, which would fire arrows at anyone who entered the tomb. So it's another Indiana Jones type of a scene. Now, Qin Shi Huang's funeral was conducted by his son, who ordered the death of any concubines of the late emperor who did not have sons. This was done in order to provide company for Qin Shi Huang in his afterlife. When the funerary ceremonies were over, the inner passageway was blocked and the outer gate was lowered so as to trap all the craftsmen in the tomb. This was to ensure that the workings of the mechanical traps and the knowledge of the tomb's treasures would not be divulged. Finally, plants and vegetation were planted on the tomb, so it resembled a hill, like many other pyramids and tombs in China, overgrown with vegetation. Now, although a written record regarding Qin Shi Huang's tomb was already in existence roughly a century after the emperor's death, it was only rediscovered in the 20th century when the tomb had been robbed in the past, however, is unknown. In 1974, a group of farmers digging wells in Lingbitong County dug up a life-size terracotta warrior from the ground. This was the beginning of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, the terracotta warriors, and each one of them, as you'll notice, has a different face. Now, and even the ranks of those in the army had different uniforms, and all those were in different faces. All those were, again, very well crafted. So this was the beginning of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. Over the last 4 decades, about 2,000 terracotta warriors have been uncovered, and it's estimated that a total of between 6,000 and 8,000 of these warriors were buried with the Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Furthermore, the terracotta army is but the tip of the iceberg, as the emperor's tomb itself remains unexcavated. It's unlikely that the tomb of Qin Shi Huang will be opened anytime soon. After all, it is a tomb. For a start, there are the tomb's booby-traps, as mentioned by Sima Qian. Despite being over 2 millennia old, it's 2,000 years old, it's been argued that they would still function as effectively as the day they were installed. Furthermore, the presence of Mercury would be incredibly deadly to anyone who entered the tomb without appropriate protection. Most importantly, however, there's the fact that our technology at present would not be adequate to deal with the sheer scale of the underground complex and the preservation of the excavated artifacts. At case in point, the terracotta warriors were once brightly painted, though exposure to the air and sunlight caused the paint to flake off almost immediately. Until further technological advances have been made, it's unlikely that archaeologists will risk opening the tomb of the first emperor of China. Now let's remember, okay, that a lot of these terracotta warriors, they say that they had the Greek influence, and the Greek statues, even the ones in the Acropolis, were originally painted. And you'll see, when you go to see them in the museums, they still have tints of coloring on them. Their eyes, their mouths, the little fringes on their clothing, the colors of gold and burgundy. So you can still see some of the colors. If you have archaeological museums in your area and you have Greek statues, look at them closely and you'll still see some of the paintings on the marble. So they were, in fact, painted as if they were alive, okay? Even though, of course, after thousands of years, the paint would flake off. This is originally from Ancient Origins, published here in Creative Commons on Collective Spark. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.